There's something haunting about a child who realizes they are the one who is hated, not ignored, not simply neglected, but actively disliked by the very people who are supposed to love them. It's a truth no child should ever have to carry, yet some do. And that mark doesn't fade with age. It carves into their sense of self like a scar. Imagine being a child who notices the sigh when they walk into the room, the subtle roll of the eyes, the way praise is given freely to siblings but withheld from them. Maybe the punishments are harsher, maybe their mistakes are magnified. Maybe, no matter what they do, they can never escape the role of being the bad one. This isn't just a feeling, it's an identity being forced upon them. You are unworthy, you are unwanted, you are the problem. Psychologists have long studied this dynamic. In dysfunctional families, hatred isn't random, it's often projection. Parents, overwhelmed by their own failures, fears, or unresolved wounds, channel those feelings into one child. The child becomes the container for everything the family cannot bear to face. In systems theory, this is sometimes called the identified patient. One member is blamed, criticized, or despised to keep the family's fragile balance intact. But to the child, it doesn't feel like psychology, it feels like life. And here's the brutal truth, a child cannot separate themselves from the hatred. They don't have the adult reasoning to say, this isn't about me, it's about them. Instead, they internalize it, they believe it. They grow up thinking, if my own parents hate me, then maybe I truly am unlovable. Think about the confusion this creates. Children are wired to seek connection. A baby cries because it expects comfort. A child shows their artwork because it expects praise. But when those bids for love are met with contempt, the mind splits. The child still craves love, but begins to believe they don't deserve it. And so every smile, every act of kindness, every attempt at being good enough becomes a desperate attempt to rewrite that story. Sometimes, the hated child fights back, becoming rebellious, angry, difficult. Other times they shrink, becoming quiet, withdrawn, hypervigilant. But both are survival strategies. Both are ways of asking, will you see me now? And yet, most of the time, the hatred doesn't soften. It persists. Because the role of the hated child isn't about who they truly are. It's about what the family needs them to be. But beneath that hatred lies a deeper wound. Because hatred, unlike neglect, isn't silent. It's loud. It's aggressive. It tells that child not just you don't matter, but you are wrong for even existing. And those words echo into adulthood long after the family dinners have ended, long after the childhood home is left behind. This is the hidden psychology of the hated child, and to understand it fully, we need to follow that child into adulthood, where the scars of hatred become both chains and sometimes the seeds of unexpected strength. The hated child does not simply leave that role behind when they grow up. They carry it with them silently into every new relationship, every workplace, every friendship. It lingers like an invisible script that whispers, you are the one who is disliked. You are the problem. You don't belong. And so, many hated children grow into adults who expect rejection before it ever happens. They may sabotage connections, push people away, or avoid intimacy altogether because deep down they fear the same pattern will repeat. If the people who raised me couldn't love me, why would anyone else? Others take the opposite path. They overcompensate. They become the overachiever, the perfectionist, the endlessly accommodating friend or partner. They believe if they just try hard enough, work harder, love deeper, sacrifice more, they might finally earn the approval that was denied to them in childhood. But here is the painful paradox. Both paths are haunted by the same belief that their worth is conditional, that love must be bought, begged for, or fought for, that being themselves will never be enough. And in some cases, the hatred doesn't just echo internally, it becomes a cycle. Some hated children, without healing, pass that same treatment to others, not because they are cruel by nature, but because hatred was the only language of love they were ever taught. Pain has a way of repeating itself unless it's consciously broken. Yet, here's the part that most people overlook. Being the hated child also comes with a strange, hidden resilience. To survive in a hostile environment, they develop sharp emotional radar. They can sense shifts in tone, moods, intentions. They become experts in reading that room. They learn to live without approval. And while this is born from pain, it can also become a source of strength later in life. Some of the most empathetic, creative, driven adults were once the hated children. They know what it feels like to be on the outside, and so they notice the outsider. They know the sting of rejection, and so they fight for acceptance of themselves and of others. But none of this cancels out the wound, because healing doesn't come from achievements or from rescuing others. Healing begins when the hated child, now grown, finally sees the hatred for what it was, not a reflection of their worth, but a reflection of their family's pain. That realization is life-changing, because the moment you understand that the hatred wasn't truly about you, you stop carrying it as your identity. You stop being the scapegoat. You stop being the family's shadow. And slowly, you reclaim the right to exist without apology. If you were that hated child, you need to hear this. You were never born wrong. You were never too much or too little. You were simply the target of a wound that existed long before you. And while that wound shaped you, it does not define you. The psychology of the hated child is tragic, but it is not hopeless. Because while hatred may have been the first story written for you, it does not have to be the last. You can write a new one where you are not the villain. You are not the scapegoat, and you're not the shadow of your family, but simply, fully yourself.